Hello, everyone. It was good seeing you this past week. What we're going to be doing today is looking at a brand new topic, and that topic is World War I. And thinking about this topic as I bring up my presentation, it's also known as the War to End All Wars, or the First World War. But I'd like to start off with this question. What do you know about World War I? What exactly comes to mind when you hear World War I, or the First World War, or the war to end all wars? And I'm sure you've heard about it through different areas, information. Perhaps you were able to see this movie that came out 1917. I saw it a couple of weeks ago. Excellent movie, excellent portrayal by Sam Mendes regarding two people. The footage, the way it was shot, the scenes, the historical accuracy. I would definitely recommend watching this movie, 1917, about two people, two British soldiers during World War I. On a more personal level, though, what you're looking at right now is a family picture, and in the middle is my great-grandfather, Sylvester di Crescenzi. He was an immigrant from Italy who came to America, and he volunteered to be part of World War I. This picture was taken at what it was called at the time Camp Dix in New Jersey. This is shortly before he was to be sent to Europe. And the job that he had in the United States Army during World War I is that he was a cook. Now, what you're going to see throughout this presentation are a lot of images because of the fact of photography during this time being able to document what was taking place. What you're looking at right now is an image of conscripted soldiers being taken to the Western Front by military buses. And I want to point out a couple of things here. Conscripted, what we're talking about here is soldiers who were drafted. Okay, soldiers who are of a certain age, who were drafted into the army. When we say the Western Front, there was in essence two fronts to the war. The Western Front being Western Europe, as well as the Eastern Front, talking about Russia, for example. And there was, in some extent, the Southern Front with the Ottoman Empire, as well as other areas in the Middle East. And what you're also looking at here is buses. Again, transportation being improved, all right, used to transport these soldiers to the front. What is most people would say when they ask them about World War I is, of course, the trenches. The trenches varied from area or front. Some were good, some were bad. Not exactly the best of living conditions. Here you're seeing German soldiers in their trenches near Antwerp in Belgium in September of 1914. Got another picture here from the Imperial War Museum in England of soldiers in the trenches, British soldiers. Again, you could see how it varied, the conditions, cramped, not exactly the best in terms of the soldier here trying to write something using his knee. We have a soldier sleeping here, other things on the roof. All right, another picture of the trench. As well as what would afflict many soldiers in the trenches, and that was what we called trench foot. You could see a picture right here, and that was caused by the amount of rain that would come down into the trenches. They couldn't easily get the water out of them, and people's feet would get wet. It would go through their boots. It would rot their boots. They would develop these rashes, these sores on their feet, and it would lead to infection and what came to be known as trench foot. As well as that, if you were living in these trenches, you had to deal with other animals, rats, Rats were quite prevalent in the trenches. Here we have a picture of German soldiers after rat hunting in the trenches. And again, about water, water was a continuous problem. What you're seeing here is a picture of British soldiers trying to keep their trench dry by pumping the water out. These pumps were mostly operated by hand. There were some mechanical ones, but it was a recurring problem trying to keep the trench dry after it rained, as well as humidity. What you're looking at here, which is also representative of World War I, is just the sheer amount of destruction that took place. This is a picture of Péronne from France, Battle of the Somme, 1916. How the buildings were just absolutely destroyed. And if you think for a moment, just as almost like a giant person walking and taking his or her foot and just pushing it down completely on the roofs and buildings and just leveling them, right? The people at this time in Europe, as well as people who come from the United States, such as Woodrow Wilson, had never seen this type of destruction before when it came to buildings and other structures. And of course, the amount of death from this war. This is a German cemetery at Bethune with wooden crosses and other religious markers. What is important to note here is that the United States of America will enter the First World War in 1917, and if you were an American soldier and who was killed in Europe, for example, during World War I, you were buried where you were killed. Your body was not brought home, as would be the case today. And what is also heart-wrenching here in looking at this image is the amount of children who became orphans because of this war. Here we have Belgian children who had lost their parents. In the Netherlands, these photos were taken, and I think it's similar to I think all of you have taken a class photo. They're all lined up. They're numbered. And if you could look here at the board in the background, the numbers are listed next to their name. And again, these group photos were published in magazines so that parents who might have become separated from their children would be able to locate them. Sadly, though, a lot of these children were never reunited with their parents. A lot of them lost their lives during this war, and these children became orphans. So I think I'm going to stop right here. This is probably the most important slide when we think about World War I, the Great War, the war to end all wars. The three firsts. It was the First World War, where you had over 30 countries declare war. And there were more that were involved directly, whether they were neutral or if they were a colony. It was the first total war. Nearly all aspects of a person's life or citizen's life was affected, not just soldiers or members of the government. And there are cases where the governments took over the economy when it came to the price of food, the price of fuel, where they used propaganda, which we'll talk about. So it was the first total war. And the last, it was the first modern war, where you had airplanes being introduced to the battlefield, zeppelins, air balloons, machine guns, armored tanks, poison gas, trench warfare on a large scale, which I've talked to you about. And you also had the use of the horse. The horse would be used for the last time during war with World War I. So it was the first modern war. And if you look at this image here, you could see in green were the Allies, United States, Great Britain, France, Russia, the colonies, the Commonwealths, Canada. The Central Powers primarily being Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the neutral countries in gray, right? Spain being an example of a neutral country during the First World War. Total war, propaganda. Again, there's hundreds if not thousands of images online about the propaganda posters that were put up at certain locations, high traffic locations. For example, women of Britain say go. Of course, they're thinking about their husbands, their brothers, their sons. Who's absent? Is it you? This is John Bull. Okay, a British propaganda poster and an Australian propaganda poster. Australia has promised Britain 50,000 more men. Will you help us keep that promise? And again, with technology, the gas masks that would be used at Ypres, Battle of Ypres, the German Zeppelin, as well as the tanks. Tanks were introduced, had a lot of problems with them, but what's going to happen is that they're going to improve the traction of the tanks, and that will be seen in the Second World War. And again, a little bit more about the trenches in Flanders, in Belgium, as well as the German U-boat, that secret weapon, which would be one of the reasons, German U-boat attacks, why the United States of America becomes involved in World War I. And again, one last image from the air of Ypres in Belgium, of just the sheer amount of destruction. It was absolutely shocking of what this war had done, and especially people who had come to Europe after the war had ended. Now, what I'm also going to ask you to do by Monday for Tuesday's class is to complete this worksheet regarding the causes of World War I. And there's an acronym that can be used to describe these causes. MAIN. The M standing for militarism. And you're going to put in this box, what is militarism? How did militarism lead to World War I? The A is alliances, and here is information regarding the alliances. The I is imperialism. And the last letter in our acronym MAIN, the N, which is nationalism. Pride in and loyalty to one's nation or country. And you're also going to be looking at an immediate cause of the First World War. That is the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, as well as his wife Sophie, in June of 1914. And there's some images that I've included regarding the assassination of these heirs to the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. So I ask that you do this by 3 p.m. Monday, and that you submit it to the classroom. It will count as a grade. We will start off class on Tuesday going over these causes, as well as looking at a little bit more regarding the assassination of the Archduke and his wife, as well as the German nation moving across its borders into Belgium and attempting to invade France through the Schlieffen Plan. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.